Me. Sorry. So, how did you come about selecting who to interview for this film, and were there any people that were cut, and also was it hard to get Gorbachev and Carter?
One reason it took more than 10 years to make the film, and then it was 2 more years of negotiating music licenses, and because maybe half of all the music we wanted in the film, it was just too expensive, we couldn't get the rights. So it's a very complex process when you have a film with popular music in it. And as to who we selected, we probably, for every interview subject you see in the film, we interviewed 2 that we filmed, but they didn't make the film. And there's several reasons for that. 2 such people that we interviewed, and I wanted to build the film even more about Czechoslovakia, was the Czech ambassador to the United Nations, whose brother-in-law was the founder of the Plastic People of the Universe. So he knew their entire story, and he told me very seriously that they were the soul and the inspiration of the dissident movement in Czechoslovakia. But his English wasn't that good. And then the other one, somewhat similarly, was a famous painter, illustrator, known here, I noticed, and in Czech Republic, Peter Sis. And he wrote a book called The Wall, about his years as a young rock and roller in Czechoslovakia. He was a rock singer, underground. He became the first rock disc jockey in Czechoslovakia for a brief 6-month window after the invasion. And he was the MC at the 3 Beach Boy concerts that they did in, first in Prague, then Bratislava, then in Brno, is that how you, Brno?
Brno.
I mispronounce it every time, thank you. And so we basically, you have certain situations in America, because America is an isolated country and people don't understand foreign languages and foreign peoples that well. So with Gorbachev, we had to have subtitles, and he spoke Russian and a few other times in the film, but generally we had to find subjects that spoke English very well. And then you have another situation that some of our best interviews, the sound and the camera work wasn't good. So the visuals and the sound, and for that reason they couldn't be in. And then we had to, basically when you make a documentary film and you have an idea of what your storyline is going to be, what your thesis, what you do is you ask everybody you interview all the same questions. That way you can get 20 different people that have an answer to the same question, and then you can tie them together. And so some people gave better answers for particular questions that we needed to carry the story along. And then you ask how hard was it to get Gorbachev and Carter. And it was the same in getting Billy Joel and Metallica. On the rock side, we didn't get the Beach Boys until we interviewed the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And without the Beach Boys, we probably wouldn't have gotten Billy Joel, and then we wouldn't have gotten Metallica. Likewise, in the first year, we interviewed President Freiberga of Latvia. And then we interviewed their ambassador to the United States, the Hungarian ambassador to the United States, who's in the film. And so we were interviewing ambassadors and we were interviewing diplomats. And I don't think Gorbachev would have done it without these people being interviewed. Plus, probably the most frequent commentator in the film was the rocker with the straw hat. He had a beard and he had a straw hat on. And he's a unique figure, and he became our partner in Russia. His grandfather was Anastas Mikoyan, who was president of the Soviet Union, and prior to that was deputy premier under Khrushchev. And he was the only leader of the Soviet Union who survived not getting assassinated from Lenin to Brezhnev. He was the only one who made it through. And so Stas could push the envelope further. He could, you know, he enjoyed like picking a print in the government without getting arrested. The beginning and the ending of that film, especially the beginning, where they're singing the Pink Floyd song and they're showing on the screen Pussy Riot and Kordovsky. No other rocker in Russia could have made that film except him. I mean, to film that and to do that concert. But he pushed the envelope and they let the concert happen and he filmed it and we put it in the film. Consequently, when Moscow International Film Festival wanted to show our film, they cut the beginning and the end of the film. Because, you know, they didn't want anything said about Putin, they didn't want, you know, anything that was anti-Putin. So it's a long process. And then, lastly, we wouldn't have gotten Jimmy Carter if we hadn't filmed Gorbachev. So it's a long process.